Welcome to the Alphagenix Podcast, where every week we talk to incredible guests from around the world of biohacking, well-being, men's health, and more. Here's your host, co-founder of Alphagenix, Tomkins.
Well, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome today's guest all the way from Ohio. We have strength and conditioning consultant Ryan Feahnle. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you having me on the show. Excited to dive in today.
Absolutely. Yeah, we obviously met last year in Texas, but both of our schedules have been pretty busy. So it's taken us kind of 6 months to get together. I guess for those people that haven't heard of you before, haven't had the pleasure of meeting, who is Ryan? How did you get started in this world of health and well-being?
Oh, that's a great question. My journey has been a wild one. So everything started when I played basketball way back in the day. That was my sport. I wanted to be the best at basketball. I had this delusion that I could be in the NBA. And so in junior high, I started training for basketball. I wanted to be able to dunk a basketball. I was in 6th or 7th grade. And so I started doing plyometric jumps. I got a little weight set filled with sand, started doing squats. And sure enough, it worked. And by 8th grade, I could dunk a basketball. By 10th grade, I could dunk a ball any way I wanted to. And it really became my passion. I love training. And then what was interesting is by the end of my basketball career, I enjoyed training more than I enjoyed the sport. And so I knew that I wanted to pursue it as a career choice. So I wanted to get in some type of athletic development. And so I started college with an exercise science degree focus. And then September 11th happened here in the States, the tragedy where the Twin Towers were struck. So I enlisted in the Air Force. Like that, there was something about that just got my blood boiling. And I just felt a sense of patriotism that I needed to serve my country. So I enlisted straight away after that, shipped off, went to basic training, tech school, had some deployments, and then eventually was able to get back into school. I finished my exercise science degree, and then my first job right out of school, I was an NCAA Division I strength and conditioning coach. I had interned with the program for a full year, and it was interesting. We were sitting in the office, and ESPN was on the TV, and they announced Sean Payton was named the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. And my boss is sitting there, and he goes, "I'm probably going to be getting a phone call about this." Sure enough, 20 minutes later, the phone rang. It was Sean Payton. Sean called him to go down and be the head strength coach for the New Orleans Saints in the NFL. And so that was a rapid shuffle. I had been there for a year interning. And so there was just a gradual progression. His assistant stepped into the director role, and I was able to step into the assistant role. And so that started me off. My teeth were cut with NCAA high performance athletes. It was all sports. We had 21 sports, everything from track and field to basketball to swimming to even synchronized ice skating, believe it or not. That is actually a sport, and we had it, and we trained them, and they trained hard. And so fast forward a little bit, I was getting some success with some of the athletes I was coaching, and I got a phone call from Charles Poliquin. And Charles he's the most medaled strength coach in Olympic history. I mean, he's coached so many athletes that have medaled across a wide variety of sports. He called me to travel and teach with him. So I left my job at the NCAA and started teaching with him. And I traveled around the world for that. I taught in Australia, I taught in England, I taught Canada. I mean, just all over the world. And did that for a while. And after a couple of years there, I started my own business, just doing online coaching and doing some teaching. And I've been doing that ever since. And it's been a wild ride. I mean, in there, I've had some ebooks that I've written that sold a little bit here and there. I've done some teaching for physical therapy clinics. I got into a little bit of body work doing fascial stretch therapy. And now I see a few NFL guys and some college athletes and some soccer moms periodically. But coaching, online coaching, mentorships, consultation is where I really find my passion, especially the teaching and consultation piece. Nothing makes me more excited than having a gym, hire come train their trainers or train their staff, and to have them start to see positive results with their clients. So It's a mixed bag. No one day is different, or no 2 days of my work days are ever alike. It's always different things. Some days I'm at a local college doing evaluations on their basketball team. Other days I'm doing body work on a soccer mom and 2 NFL players. Other days I'm in my inbox reviewing client programs, doing Loom videos, reviewing exercise techniques. So it's truly a mixed bag, and I'm truly blessed to be able to have that type of variety in my work.
I love that. Yeah. Variety is the spice of life, isn't it? I mean, if you're doing the same thing every day, even if it's something you love, there's going to come a time where it gets a little bit boring and monotonous.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't sit at a computer screen every day, 7 days a week, but I also couldn't be coaching 12 to 13 hours on a gym floor 7 days a week like I used to back in the day. So it's nice to have a mix.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess over that time then, so you've worked with athletes, as you say, right through to soccer moms, you've trained, you've traveled the world with Charles Poliquin, and I guess not many people get invited to go and travel with Charles, so that's incredible.
Right.
What have you kind of learned over that period of time? What drives someone to want to be the best?
That's a great question. And I think it's basically an undying passion to continue to learn. A lot of people, if some people get in a room with an expert, their egos get fragile because they want to be the person that knows the most. Not me. I'm sitting there. I want to ask a bunch of questions. I want to learn more. I want to grow myself. And I truly believe you can learn something from anybody that you can directly apply to your own life, your business, your skill set. And so it was really just that passion for learning that has continued to drive. You know, I got to a point where I was very, very, very good and still have the skill set at developing explosive strength athletes. I mean, improving an athlete's vertical jump is one of my fortes. And it's something I've been able to do repeatedly with lots of people, NFL combine, training to track and field athletes, volleyball. But then there came a point where I realized, man, I don't really know how to get people shredded. I don't know much about body composition training. I don't understand about nutrition. And so I started seeking out experts in those areas, made a lot of mistakes, asked a lot of questions, met a lot of people, and have been honing that skill set. And then there was a period of time where I had some people that were coming to me with injuries limitations. So I started talking to physical therapists, talking to doctors, learning the rehab side of things. And I've been able, one of the niches I've been able to tackle here in Cincinnati that I've been considered an expert in is how to bridge the gap between physical therapy and return to sport. Because you have physical therapists, they go to physical therapy school and they're very, very good at the immediate post-surgery period. Then you've got strength coaches who are good at high performance. And there's this massive gap in between that it's a really sad gap that exists. A lot of athletes get screwed by this gap because it gets to a point where they're cleared from their surgeon to return to sport, but they are not ready yet to tackle the demands of the sport. And they get right back into the same training program that the strength coach had them doing prior, and they end up re-injured. And so having developed skill sets in multiple arenas, I found ways to be able to bridge that gap. And so I spend a lot of time lecturing at physical therapy clinics and hospitals that have a physical sports performance department. And so the doctors are in there learning from me as well. And I'm teaching them, some of the things from the meathead strength and conditioning side that they can incorporate. And I'm teaching the physical therapists how they can toughen up their programs a little bit to make them a little more hard-nosed, to get an athlete prepared for what they're going to do again. And so I think all of it really stems from just curiosity, a genuine curiosity and a genuine knowledge, or a genuine thirst for knowledge about the human body. There's still some areas that I have base knowledge in, but I'm still working on, learning about.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. That curiosity. I think that's what drives all of us, I guess, to be better. And it's interesting listening to you speak, because I am a physical therapist by profession, although it's been years since I've spoken or treated anyone. And it's true what you say. We're taught diagnostic skills, and we're taught a certain level of treatment, but we're not taught how to rehabilitate someone back to sport. We're taught how to return someone even back to the workplace. So I was a specialist in occupational health and ergonomics. So I would rehab people back to work, because there's a big disparity between, okay, you're pain free and you can go and climb that ladder, or you can go and sit 8 hours a day.
Well,
so
we see that in the sports world. You get an athlete post shoulder surgery, and the physical therapist and the doctor are like, okay, great, he can do 3 sets of 10 rotations with the TheraBand. He can go back to bench pressing now. It's like, no, he cannot. Not yet.
Yeah, those 3 sets of 10, that was the extent of our training at university.
Right.
3 sets of 10 of anything and you're fine.
Yeah.
Life's a little different than that.
Right.
Excuse me. What is it? What's a better question? So the world, I guess, at the moment is supposedly the technologically most advanced it ever is, or as it ever has been. We are supposedly better in every way. We are living longer. But why are we getting more unhealthy? We have this passion, obviously, you and I, for health, and we're delving into it now. But it seems like in so many ways we are getting better as a species, but in a lot, and particularly our health, is going the other way. From all the people you've met over the years, what do you think is playing into this?
It's interesting. We're living longer, but with lower qualities of life. So medicine is really good at keeping people alive. And so we do that. But in the process, we have obesity, we have rampant inflammation, we have degenerative diseases. And I think it's obviously multifactorial, right? I'm not going to sit here as a strength coach and have the ego to say, well, it's just this thing, and this thing. And if everyone just did this, the world would be fine. It's multifactorial. It's economic. It's pollution. It's access to food. It's how activity levels, right? All those things that have made life more convenient have also made us more sedentary. And so with each passing generation, we are less active than the generation before us on the whole. We sit more. I can sit here right now, Ross, and before the end of this podcast, I could have an entire pizza and cookies delivered right to me right here while we're doing this podcast. Whereas 100 years ago, if I wanted a pizza, you'd have to you have to go get it. You have to find it. You probably had to make it. And the way you made the pizza 100 years ago was from harvesting the crops that you farmed to get the fresh ingredients to make the pizza. So it was you were laboring around the clock even to feed yourself. Now it's like everything is so easy. And so sedentary lifestyle is one thing. I think nutrition is another big one. I think our parents' generation, so I'm 41 years old, and I think my parents' generation was the first generation that really was exposed to heavily processed foods. And so as a kid, I could have unlimited sugary cereal. If I wanted 3 bowls of Lucky Charms, I could have 3 bowls of Lucky Charms. I could have unlimited pop or soda, whatever you call it in the UK. 40 some grams of sugar per can. I could have 6 cans a day if I wanted, because at that point, they didn't know the detriment of high amounts of sugar in single servings, right? And so none of that stuff was available 100 years ago. 100 years ago, cereal was just basic grain cereal. But then all of a sudden, when money became involved, they realized we can sell more cereal if we put little marshmallows in it and we put cartoon characters on it. So kids beg their parents to buy it. And then it's easy and it's convenient for the parents. They don't have to cook a hot breakfast. They can pour a quick bowl of cereal, pour some milk over it, and be out the door. And so with no dishes other than loading the dishwasher. That's another thing too. Load the dishwasher. So you're not active washing dishes. You're not active cooking. And so it's a compound, really complex problem. And I think most people know what to do about it, but they just choose to not do it until it's too late and their health is already gone.
Yeah. A lot of, I guess, of what came through from what you said there was, I guess, about convenience. We live in this fast-paced, convenient world. Everything's easy. So where does kind of discipline come into this? Because I've heard you talk about this on other people's shows before. Are we lacking in discipline more than 100 years ago, or is it just convenience?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. You can get by further with a lack of discipline now than you could 100 years ago. 100 years ago, if you lacked discipline, you wouldn't be able to feed your family, right? You simply wouldn't be able to. So in order to survive, you had to at least have the discipline to get up, go to work, figure out food. A lot of times that involved farming and providing, hunting, fishing, which, you know, requires effort. Now you can be very, very lazy and still survive. And so discipline is not, it's not as readily available. And I also think that things that are convenient kill discipline. Like these damn cell phones, like doom scrolling on your phone is the fastest way to zap your own personal discipline. It's causing, and I think this is a different topic. I think our generation is going to screw our kids up with technology the way our parents' generation screwed us up with food. You know, the technology piece I think is so dangerous, and you're seeing kids now with anxiety and social disorders because they don't know how to interact with humans because they've had an iPad in their hand since they were 4 years old or younger. And so I think that piece it falls into the discipline as well. But discipline truly, it's not hard. It's just skill that's built one habit at a time. And that is, I truly believe that's the key to building discipline, is starting small with a basic habit, being successful at it. The success breeds success, right? It breeds more confidence. So one of the things that I think people screw up when it comes to discipline, especially when we're talking health and fitness, is they get all motivated, and motivation is waning, right? Like motivation is fleeting. It will disappear. It will come and go. But people get motivated and they say, I'm going to completely change my life. I'm going to start this workout plan and I'm going to go on this crazy restrictive diet. And I'm going to go to bed early and I'm going to XYZ. I'm going to stop drinking alcohol, blah, 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 blah. And they try to make a drastic lifestyle change that requires so much discipline that after a short period of time, their willpower battery just runs out. They haven't spent enough time building the habits to create that discipline. Okay. Versus, let's take it small. And I do this with a lot of clients, Ross. I'll have some clients, you know, I get a mixed bag for clients. A lot of my clients are already athletes or in the fitness space, so they already kind of know what to do. But I get some people that I'll train that are completely sedentary, no history of good health eating, no real history of exercise. And they'll come to me excited, I want to start a diet, I want to do this. And I'll say, no, the first thing is you need to drink X amount of water per day. And they're like, I could do so much more than that. I'm like, nope, we're going to start there. When you can do that for 66 days in a row, just the water, then we'll move on to the next thing. And people get upset. And it's like, that's not going to do anything. Well, interestingly enough, when you take someone who's super inflamed and they're sedentary and they start drinking more water, they're going to feel a little bit more full. They're going to be more hydrated. They're going to have better energy. They're going to detoxify their bodies better. And so they're already going to feel better within that first period of time. Then we say, okay, next target, you're great at water. Now let's eat X amount of protein per day, this many grams of protein per day. Oh yeah, but what about, should I stop eating cookies? Nope, not yet. Just focus for the next couple months on getting this many grams of protein per day. And you got to do it for this many days in a row before we even work on the next habit. So I haven't said anything yet. I haven't taken anything away from them yet. I've only given, right? I've given them water. I've given them protein. And what happens when you're drinking enough water and you're getting enough protein? You're going to feel more full. Protein it's satiating. So people will naturally binge less on quote unquote junk foods when they're getting their protein target. So these people are going to start losing weight initially without me having ever taken anything away. Okay. And we build those habits slowly in a lot of cases. And for some people, it's too slow. Some people want faster, and we may tinker with faster. And quite frankly, most of the people that try to do it fast don't succeed, truly. And we just take it one habit at a time. We work on water, we work on protein, and we work on vegetables. And again, I don't take anything away initially, because here's the thing, Ross. If I tell you, don't think of a pink elephant, what's the first fucking thing you think of? A pink elephant. So the same holds true if you take someone who's been formerly sedentary, I don't care how motivated they are, and you say, okay, no carbs. We're going on a no carb diet. All they're going to be able to think about is carbs. And then what will happen? Their willpower will eventually run out. Willpower is like a battery. They all differ in length, but we all have a battery length of how much we can exercise willpower. When you take someone who has been heavily restricted and their willpower battery runs out, they are not going to eat those carbohydrates like a responsible human. They are going to fall off the wagon and fall off the wagon hard. And so the best approach, in my opinion, with someone who's starting from nothing, completely sedentary, has no habits, no discipline, is acts of inclusion. We're going to include water. We're going to include protein. We're going to include veggies. We're going to include fruits. And what's interesting is you will eventually get to a point where they're eating so much fruit, vegetables, and protein that their amount of junk food just naturally starts to decline without you ever having to take it away from them. And then at a certain point, you work on tightening things up even further. But I'll tell you what, I've had a lot of people lose their weight loss goal without ever having to take anything away, like completely get to it without me ever restricting anything. They're like, it's amazing. Like now, instead of eating a whole box of Oreos, I'll just like, after my protein and veggies and everything for the day, I'll just have like 2 Oreos and be good, which is how Oreos are meant to be eaten, right? Like we shouldn't deprive ourselves of things that we enjoy. It's just we've gotten so far out of balance with the convenient processed foods versus the whole single ingredient foods that nourish us.
I love that. It's a fantastic approach. Yeah, because that taking something away, as you say, it just makes somebody think, I'm missing out. What's going on? I want it back. But you're just actually giving them things instead. I love that.
Yeah. And I mean, that was a long rant about food, but I think the point, going back to discipline, is people need to start with one simple, easy habit that they are confident they can do every day. It could be making your bed, right? Like that's one, I forget the author. It was in a book. I'm blanking on it right now, but it was like, it starts like the whole concept of starting your day just by making the bed. It starts you with a win. It starts you with success. It starts you with a positive habit. And then the rest of your day will follow, versus if you start the day on a negative note or with a bad habit. And so I think that's how you build discipline, is just starting with habits and building from there. And then it boils down to ultimately your reason why you're doing what you're doing. And you have to have a really powerful reason why you're doing something in order to continue doing that something.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you help your clients find out what that is?
In a lot of ways, we try to do that. And sometimes what's interesting is people will come to the realization that they don't actually want what they initially set out to get, because the why is not powerful enough. And they realize, you know what? I think I'd rather have a little bit of a social life and be able to go have drinks with my friends than be cover model ripped year round, And so, but then there's other people who, over the course of working with them, they find a really powerful reason why. I've worked with some people before, and they've shared with me that it's been life-changing. People who have always tried to get in shape, couldn't do it. And then when I'm talking to them, I put just the very frank, very real message in front of them that, hey, do you want your kid to be fatherless when they're 12 years old, when they're 10 years old? Because the path you're on right now, you're setting yourself up to die early. And while no one can guarantee how I could get hit by an airplane out of the sky right now on this podcast, we have no guarantees how long we live, but you want to give yourself the best possible chance to be healthy for your kids. So a lot of times with parents, that's how I reframe it for them. And it's like all of a sudden that I can't stick to my diet, I can't do anything. When they think of that as they're about to rail off an entire pack of Oreos, that perspective shift brings them back to center and they're able to stick to the plan. So having that powerful reason is important.
Yeah, that is powerful. And have you noticed over the years any difference between genders? Like, are men or women better at being fit or better at being disciplined?
I think that, you know what, it kind of goes both ways. I feel like men most often will take ownership for their failures, but never change. Like, oh yeah, I just need to stop drinking on the weekends. And then 3 months later, oh yeah, I'm still drinking on the weekends. Women, I feel like, and this is a generalization, I'm not I'm not saying sexist, but I feel like a lot of females will find some alternative reason. Oh, it's my hormones are messed up. It's like, are you sure it's not the 4 mimosas you're having every Saturday and Sunday morning for brunch? Are we sure it's the hormones? And yes, hormones do play a part. Absolutely. It's a critical piece of the puzzle. But what I've found is that there are a lot of people who use it as a scapegoat to make poor decisions. So maybe they've struggled to get results. Maybe they even had a lab test that came in bad, like, oh, their thyroid is a little bit down. And then you still see them making poor decisions. And then they claim, well, my thyroid's off. So it's like, if your thyroid's off, that's all the more reason to make the right decisions with your food. And so I think in general, females struggle a little bit more. Okay, the female hormone cycle is so dramatically different from the male cycle, within a month, that there is a lot of consideration that need to be made. And so hormones are a little bit trickier for females to manage, but the rules still apply. I think the toughest part for females is females, due to being naturally smaller, have naturally less muscle mass, so naturally lower baseline calorie levels. So it becomes more dangerous for them to enter a calorie deficit because it can impact their hormonal cycles to a much greater degree than males. And I've seen that so often where females have just dieted on super, 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 super low calories to the point where they're malnourished. And so that is, I think, a bigger struggle on the female side, is just metabolic downregulation from trying to out diet, bad habits.
Yeah. And I think men on the other side, we're sometimes guilty of hiding in certain things, whether that is alcohol at a weekend or junk food or all those things as well. We don't want to have those deep questions or ask ourselves what's really going on.
And also, man, it's the nutrition and training world is fucking confusing now. There's so much bad advice out there on Instagram. I saw some woman on Instagram talking about how tomatoes were the reason everybody was fat. And I don't even remember what it was. I could barely watch without poking my eyes out. And it's like, really, tomatoes is why everyone is fat. Like, big tomato farmers everywhere out there trying to keep you chunky, right? And so, there's a lot of misinformation, so people don't know what to do. But here's the thing. The basics work. Like, and as for getting in shape, as for losing body fat, a calorie deficit is the most critical piece of the puzzle. A calorie deficit with sufficient protein. Those are the biggest two rocks. Yes, there are other things, but I have so many people tell me I can't lose weight because of my hormones, and it's like when you check their food, there's little things that sneak in here. I call them BLTs, bites, licks, and eat according to plan, but then when you interview them, they finished their kids' chicken nuggets, or they were baking for someone and they licked the spoon. And these BLTs can add up to an additional 200 to 300, sometimes even 400 calories per day. So that female who thought she was eating 1,500 calories was actually eating closer to 2,000. And when she eliminates the bites, licks, and tastes, magically the hormone problem disappears. The hormone problem disappears, and she actually starts losing weight. It was really a calorie problem to begin with. And so, and I think this was really illustrated to me in a big way years ago. So my ex-wife had an uncle that had Down syndrome, and he was 5'2", and at one point he was over 300 pounds, just obese. And he had the cognitive ability of a child, so he could communicate, but there was not a lot of advanced thinking going on there. Well, he had a health scare and ended up in the hospital, and he was intubated in IVs, and it scared him to pieces, right? And the doctor said, you have to lose weight, and said you need to eat less, and you need to restrict your calories. And so her uncle came back from that and also told him you need to exercise. So basically he would take walks every day. He would just take little walks. There was no weight training. There was no interval sprints. There was no perfect ratio. He would take walks. He basically cut his meals in half. He ate the same things. He would, instead of eating a hot dog for lunch, he would eat half a hot dog for lunch. Instead of eating a burger for dinner, he would eat half a burger for dinner. And wouldn't you know it, he ended up, when he passed away, he was around 150 pounds. He lost half of himself and lived way longer, like outlived, expectations by many, many years. And it's like, it was so simple, but he had a really powerful reason why. It scared him to be in the hospital, and that fear drove him to make good decisions. He never missed a walk. I'll tell you what, snowstorm, Uncle Andrew's out there walking. Pouring down rain, Uncle Andrew's out there walking. Family party, we're celebrating something, and somebody brings out the cake. He put his hand up, say, "No thanks. I need to lose weight." And it's like, I tell people that story, and it's just, but the flip side is you have all these people who have all the means. They've got the information, they've got the cognitive ability to do so. They have the means to exercise, they lift weights, they eat, and they complain that I just can't lose weight no matter what. And yet they're still doing cocktail brunch with the girls. They're still sneaking a cookie here and there. And it's a discipline thing, but they want to blame hormones.
Yeah. And you've got the media as well, haven't you? Saying on the one hand, you've got part of the media saying it's genetic if you're overweight.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm pretty sure if you don't put it in your mouth, you're not going to be overweight, regardless of what your genes are saying. And then you've got the other part of the media that kind of almost glamorizing it. Like, it's okay to be overweight and obese. And you're like, it's okay to be yourself, but there's also there's duty surely to be healthy, like not obese. It's a crazy time to live.
It is a very interesting time to be alive. I mean, there are people that deny that there's any negative health risks whatsoever with being obese. And it's like, there are decades upon decades of scientific research available. And let's be clear, how many 95-year-old people do you see that are 300 pounds? They may be out there. I don't see many, and it's just one of those things. Yeah, I agree. It's a weird time. I think that all being said, there are some instances where hormones are playing a huge role in someone's struggles. There are instances where a lot of people who struggle with obesity have very poor signaling in the brain. So their leptin and ghrelin are all messed up. They can't, when they eat, their brain does not get the signal that they've had enough calories. And when they're full, their brain does not indicate that they're satiated. So it's this two-way street. And, there's a lot of treatments now that are coming out that can help with those things. But at the end of the day, I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like, if all the metabolic ward studies, so metabolic ward studies are where they take study patients and they actually have to live at the hospital or the university while the study is being conducted, and their food intake is 100% controlled by the researchers. They have zero access to outside food, so there's no chance that they could possibly slip up. In all the metabolic ward studies, people that are initiated in a calorie deficit lose weight. And so a lot of times when people are like, oh, I'm eating how I should, I'm just not losing weight, there's something about their day or their week that just isn't adding up. In a lot of cases, someone eats really well Monday through Friday, and then the weekend screws them, and they out-eat their entire calorie deficit on the weekends. For some people, like I said, they're very consistent even on the weekends, but it's those bites, licks, and tastes, that those innocent little, I'm just going to have one Hershey's Kiss out of the candy jar. I'm going to lick the spoon after I bake a cake. My kid didn't finish his pizza. I'm just going to eat his crust so I don't waste. Those things add up. Oftentimes it's complete ignorance over how many calories are in restaurant food. Restaurants, you may track a salad as X, Y, and Z calories, but did you know that they cook the salad with 6 tablespoons of oil? You know what I mean? And hundreds more calories. There's also ignorance. This is a funny story, man. I had this football player a while back. He was a defensive lineman, and he was super explosive, super fast, but overweight. Like he weighed like 350 or 360, and we really needed him to be closer to 300. But we said, you know what, if he could get to like 320, that's good enough. But really, I mean, just a huge ball of a human, just fat, but still powerful. And so I started working with him on his nutrition. And, I would ask him every day, what'd you eat today? It was funny. His nickname was Big Cheese, and he had a little lisp. I'd be like, what'd you eat today, Cheese? And he'd be like, salad. I'm like, what'd you put on your salad? chicken strips. I'm like, okay, don't put fried chicken strips. You can put grilled chicken strips on the salad. So anyway, we're working with him, and it gets to a point where I'm auditing all his meals, and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. He has not lost any weight whatsoever. The dude, I had even gone as far to go to the dining hall and watch him get his food, and he's getting a salad with grilled chicken. And I'm like, at one point, I'm like, all right, man, geez, are you drinking anything throughout the day? And he goes, Country Time lemonade. And I said, Country Time lemonade. And I'm like, how much? And he goes, just one. I said, just one, Martin? He goes, one case. One case. He was drinking 24 cans of Country Time lemonade per day, which each can has about 40 grams of sugar. Okay. But I was like, and I kind of blew up at him. He wasn't a bright kid. I blew up at him like, what are you thinking? He goes, Coach, it's lemonades. It's lemon. It's a fruit. It's healthy. And I was like, okay. It was an ignorance thing. He genuinely thought lemonade, and if you think about it, like logically, lemons are a fruit. You were encouraging him to eat fruits. Lemonade must be healthy, and this tastes good, and it hydrates me, so I'm going to drink 24 fucking cans a day.
Did he lose weight?
So interesting. Yeah. Oh yeah. Once we pulled that, I mean, he dropped weight. I mean, he was 315 within probably a month. It was, he lost a ton of weight real quick. I mean, thousands upon thousands of calories immediately removed from his diet, so.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, we talked a little bit about hormones before in regard to obesity, I guess, and that signaling. What about sort of male hormones as well? So obviously we know each other from the summit in Texas, where it was all about men's hormones. So do you talk about TRT and hormones with your male clients?
Yes. So even with females, I always encourage people to get blood labs done. Even, because as I mentioned, hormones should never be a scapegoat for poor life choices, but hormones can absolutely influence how readily someone can change their body composition. And so I will always recommend that people get blood work done just so we can see a good internal picture of what's going on inside. With females, it's a little more complicated because to truly get a picture, you have to have the labs done at all the various points in the cycle to see what's going on in the luteal phase and the follicular phase. And that's just, quite frankly, a pain in the ass and a lot of money. And a lot of insurance companies won't support that degree of testing. And so a lot of times ladies are going out of pocket for that. But, if someone's truly serious, I think that's the way to go. For males, yes, low testosterone levels will lead to a lot of unwanted things, low energy levels, low sex drive, poor performance in the gym, less lean muscle mass, higher levels of body fat, not to mention the actual very real health risks. You're at increased risk of heart cardiovascular disease when you have low testosterone. People don't realize that. You're at increased risk of diabetes when you have low testosterone. And so we want to make sure that ideally everyone is operating in optimal ranges and that they feel good, right? There's no reason for you to drag your knuckles through life because your body naturally produces less of something that it should make, right? We're producing less than we make because we're way more stressed. Our environment is terrible. We've got a lot of pollutants in our environment now. We're constantly stressed, and so the hypogonadal, the gonad axis is getting thrown off. The HPT axis is getting thrown off. So it's like younger and younger males are showing up with low testosterone and they're symptomatic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's definitely becoming more prevalent, isn't it?
Oh, very much so. I'm seeing guys now in their, late 20s that have a medical need for TRT.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. I think a study I read recently said 20% of 15 to 39-year-old men are clinically low, which is frightening. Another study I read recently, which would be interesting to get your take on, it was an article actually that said masculinity or going to the gym was toxic because actually young boys were finding that it was making them anxious to think that they were supposed to look a certain way. And the example they gave was idolizing Superman, who has chiseled muscles, is causing health problems in younger men. As someone who helps people get healthy and get fit and lift weights, how does that make you feel, I guess?
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack with that question. I love that question. I think first and foremost, we have to consider that men and women alike suffer from body image issues. We used to think it was just a female thing, right? The girls wanted to be cover model thin, the skinny phase that kind of went through the 90s. Everyone wanted to be skinny. Girls were smoking cigarettes and stuff to try to get skinnier, to try to be as humanly small as possible. And so a lot of women looked at magazines and it became dissatisfied with themselves because they were trying to live up to that ideal. Well, now we know, and really it's been this way for years, but it's just now coming out, that men suffer from the same things too. A lot of males do not like the way they look, especially in comparison to the heavily muscled men in movies, on magazines, and it creates an unrealistic ideal for a lot of people to live up to. Now, you use the term masculinity, and that's one area where I'm going to have to take a hard dive. Masculinity has absolutely nothing to do about beating your chest, having big muscles, having a strong beard. Masculinity is truly about serving other people, putting others first, providing and protecting, doing what you say you're going to do, executing with discipline. And none of those have a single damn thing to do with how much you can bench press. Okay. There are some very skinny, twerpy, quote unquote, nerdy dudes who are incredibly fucking masculine because they take care of their families. They hold their word. They put others first, they serve. And so that's a big thing. That I find I get kind of heated about that when people talk about that, because it's a misnomer that masculinity is all about like the peacock show of like puffing your chest out. And, a lot of people, and I hate to say this, Alphagenix, you're the co-founder of Alphagenix. The term alpha drives me nuts in a lot of contexts of the way it's used, because typically the people that are using it, like the people that are going around proclaiming themselves as alphas, are anything but. Again, alphas are the protectors. They're the servant leaders of the family. They're the ones that are leading by example, not saying what they're doing. They're not telling other people they're alpha. They're being alpha by their actions. And so truly masculinity has absolutely nothing to do with your muscles. I've seen men with severe disabilities that were more masculine than I'll ever be. You know what I mean? Just because of the way they carried themselves, their integrity, their honor, all those things. And so I just want to make sure we're not getting that confused with big muscles and a thick beard.
Yeah, I love that. It's so true. I think it's tough for younger men nowadays because the word toxic somehow got muddled up with masculinity. And now people are scared to be confident. They're scared to be that protector. They don't want to pull a chair out for a lady or open a door because they don't want to be seen as misogynistic or chauvinistic. And you're like, that's
Right.
just being nice. Like that's just
Yes.
being the protector and being masculine.
Oh, I've probably twice in my life, I've had a female almost not yell at me, but snap at me for like, I get my own door. I can pull out my own. And it's just like, hey, I was just being polite. I was going to let you go in front of me, just like I would that little kid, just like I was going to do the dude behind you as well. Like it had nothing to do with you being a female or me thinking that I'm, again, true alpha is taking care of other people, being kind, being polite, all those things. And so, yeah, it's interesting. Some of the most genuine, polite, kind men I know don't have very much muscle, right? But it's like those are the real alphas in the world because they do what they say they're going to do. They take care of people. They stand up to what their word says. And so, yeah, I think the muscles are great to have. It's a lot of fun. Train the muscles for me. It's like a side effect of the training because I love the training so much. I always like to have like a different goal that I'm training for, and so sometimes it's vertical jumps. Sometimes one of the worst I ever decided to train for. Those Rogue Echo bikes, like a fan bike, like it's like an assault bike. So
an assault bike,
yeah. So it's an assault bike, but it's the Rogue version, the Echo bike, and it's built like a tank. It's way harder to crank wattage on than an assault bike. Well, a buddy of mine challenged me to see if I could do 1.5 miles in under 3 minutes, and so I trained for it. And Ross, that was the worst. That's one of the worst things I've ever done. Like, I was so physically ill after I did it in 259. But man, I'll tell you what. And so it's not as much about the muscles for me as it is just hard physical activity in some capacity. I enjoy training for a goal. I like having a target. And that's the same for the gym. That's the same for business. It's the same for family. And all, it's the same for my investments. It's all those things. I'm very goal driven. And so, muscles are nice, but it's not what defines masculinity in my opinion.
Yeah. I love that. I'm laughing to myself because I remember doing an assault bike challenge many, many years ago, and I practically fell off at the end. And my wife had to drive home. I was like shaking. I couldn't even drive.
Yeah.
I was like, this is not a good idea.
Oh yeah, it's terrible.
But the goal side of things that you mentioned, I think that's so important, that we all need to have something in our life. It kind of goes back to having that powerful why again. I think we're on this planet to see what we're capable of, in business, in parenting, in health, every area of our life. I think we're here to see whether we can be the best version of ourselves. It's kind of coming through from what you're saying too.
Yeah. Oh, in a lot of way. And I think I don't know, I don't know what your viewpoints are. I'm a man of faith. And so I believe that our purpose on life is to serve others as well. To serve others and be better for God's kingdom. Again, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I have that kind of higher viewpoint of it. It's more than just saving a bunch of money or reading a bunch of books or lifting a bunch of weights. Like, I just think all those things can be used for the greater good. Like, I can't tell you how many people have found new purpose in their life from lifting weights, right? And that's a way that they can serve others. It's a way that I'm able to serve others. I've had a lot of people who were down in the dumps, depressed, possibly overweight, and it's like my service to them was helping them realize that, look, if you don't take care of your health, you're not going to be here for your family. And so in that regard, I feel like that is part of my purpose. When it's about vanity, if it's just about how big your biceps look, I don't know, that will always, it's just a bad road to go down, and it's not going to be fulfilling, right? When your biceps are 18 inches, you just want 19-inch biceps. When your biceps are 19 inches, you just want 20-inch biceps. Like, that seems to be and the same thing if your goal is money. I truly believe that this may not be any people's belief. I do have financial goals, but I truly believe that once your basic needs are met, like, money can't actually provide happiness. Like, I do believe money can provide happiness if you're homeless and now you have enough money to put a roof over your head. I think to that point. But once you can feed yourself, you have a roof over your head, you can pay your bills and all that, I don't believe that more money makes you more happy, because what happens is people get to the point, let's say they make $60,000 and they're like, man, if I could just make 100K. Then they make 100K and they just increase their spending on stupid shit. And they're like, man, if I could just make 150K. And then next thing you know, they're making, you have these people that climb the ladder and they're now they're pulling down $1 million a year, but they're hanging out with people making 10 million a year. And then they make 10 million a year, and that's not good enough. They want to be, it's just like, and all the while they're just accumulating more and more stuff that they can't take with them when they die. And it's like, I love the pursuit of pushing yourself for higher goals, but it's also like all that stuff will fade, man. It's like, it can't be your whole purpose.
Yeah. Happiness is an inside job, isn't it? And I read something a little while ago, which I loved it. It said, if you can't find happiness in a good cup of coffee, you will never find happiness in a helicopter. Like,
that's like, brilliant.
Wow, that is so true. Like, it's an inside thing. Like, you have to be able to take it where it comes, and it could be in the littlest moment, helping a client, opening a door for someone smiles at you, from across the road. Like, those things, if you can get happiness there, then have amazing goals, have lofty goals. Money certainly buys opportunities, but it doesn't buy happiness, as you say.
Yes, I've known some very, very wealthy people who were absolutely miserable. And I will also say that for me personally, one of the highest earning periods of my life was when I was the most miserable as well. So,
yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, I absolutely loved our conversation. loads of great things in there. If someone has been watching this, listening, and they're like, I need to work with Ryan, how do they find you?
So best place is going to be on my Instagram. It's at Ryan Feahnle. And then you can see how it's spelled here. RyanFaehnle. I also work with Allie Gilbert and Silverback Coaching. And so you can have the opportunity to work with us too. People ask, is there a difference between working with me versus working with Allie? You could still get me as a coach. Allie has a very good network of hormone specialists that we can help refer out to. In terms of people coming to me individually, I think for more specialized goals like athletic performance and things of that nature, it's probably best to come to me individually. But when it comes to like body composition, or if labs need to be done and all that, doing it through Silverback Coaching is the way to go.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for your time, Ryan. I'll let you get on with your day, and I'll speak to you very soon. Take care.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Alphagenix podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss next week's episode. For more resources on Alphagenix and men's health, visit alphagenix.co.uk. Until next time.